Hello everyone, my name is Michael Knipp, and if you are new to the channel, let me give you a quick recap. This year I have fallen in love with Will White's The Cradle series, and book 11 for that series, it's going to be 12 parts, we're pretty sure at this point, has been named, and there's a lot of theories going around for what's going on there, but I have fallen in love with Cradle. I love it so much. I think that what Will White does with the Cradle series is he is a master at foreshadowing and setting up series elements for leaving the carrot on a stick constantly dangling, for theory crafting, for character moments, for seeing characters grow over time. I've talked about Cradle a lot recently, but it's progression fantasy. So you're going to see characters constantly getting stronger over the course of this series. And it is so well done. Cradle has become one of my favorite series of all time. It's only been around for about 5 years now, but there are 11 books in the series. Dreadgod was just released. Dreadgod is excellent. It continues the long-running line of why Cradle is amazing. It leaves me anxious. It leaves me with a lot of cliffhangers. Unfortunately, because it is the 11th book of a potentially 12-book series, there's not a lot of ways that I can talk about Dreadgod in ways that are spoiler-free, especially for the series, but even for Dreadgod. So if you are not familiar with the Cradle series, maybe go check out my other Cradle videos, which I will leave a a card up above where you can click and see my thoughts about the other Cradle series. Check out the video where I talk about why you should read the Cradle series. If it sounds interesting to you, you should read it. Absolutely, 100%. However, this video is going to be a spoilery discussion for my overall thoughts on the Cradle series, and this includes spoilers for Dreadgod. So if you have not read the newest book that came out July 5th for Cradle, book 11, Dreadgod, then yeah, it's probably a good time to click away, because I'm going to just be giving my thoughts on the series as a whole and my thoughts on Dreadgod included. This is going to be a spoilery discussion. I'm just going to be giving my free thoughts, and I feel like some people that have loved Cradle have been wanting this for a while. I'm just going to talk about why I think Cradle is amazing and my favorite parts of the series thus far, but it is going to, once again, include spoilers for Dreadgod. So if you have not read Dreadgod, if you have not caught up to this point in the Cradle series, this is going to be a spoiler discussion. Please click away from the video, because this is a type of series that I think you should not be spoiled for. That being said, the spoiler discussion is going to be starting now. Thanks for watching. Go read Cradle, and there's lots of other videos on the channel to check out if you want to. So I finished Dreadgod this week, and my goodness, does Will White just do such an amazing job at making this series one of the most fun series in fantasy right now. I can't get enough of Cradle. I binged this series like nothing else because I heard so many good things about it. I started reading Unsouled. I thought it was okay. I started reading Soulsmith, and I really caught on, I think, at Soulsmith, and then I sort of binged the rest of the books in a couple week period. I was so hyped to find out. I didn't even know that Dreadgod was coming when it was coming. I found out that it was coming about a week before it came out, and then Dreadgod came out, and I read it in a couple days. So I love this series. And one of my favorite things about Dreadgod is the fact that I have such a recent experience with reading through the whole series this year. At the beginning of this year, we see in Unsouled, Lindon is so weak, and he just wants to get powerful, and based on the fact that he sees his world destroyed and he finds out that everything is going to come crumbling to pieces, we see him have this desire to get stronger so that he can save Sacred Valley, and that eventually morphs to him just becoming more powerful to save the ones that he loves. Lindon's journey is such an amazing journey, and the way that it's so masterfully done, where he is so inept and non-powerful at the beginning of the series, and in Dreadgod we see him literally kill a Dreadgod. Yes, he has a lot of help, but he gets to the point where he is able to kill a Dreadgod. He is one of the most powerful people on the planet of Cradle. At the end of Dreadgod, even at the beginning of Dreadgod, Will White, in one of his recent live streams, says that he was actually more powerful than Yeren, which he'd been chasing Yeren for a really long time, and now he's so powerful. To get to see him go through this arc and to have it feel so natural with the course of events that he goes on. Like, you have to try to balance, how does someone become powerful without it seeming corny, because he has to advance past everyone, and his drive and the way that he does it and the events that he goes on, the way that he gets Dross, the way that he gets Little Blue, the way that he develops his path, the way that Eithan comes into his life, and Eithan's entire story, where we found out in Reaper that Eithan the whole time has been Ozriel. And Ozriel, this is one of my favorite archetypes, I guess, which is the character that finds out that the status quo is not enough and it's not working. And whatever the name of the ultimate villain of the series is, I can't remember, but like the idea, and this goes back to like my love with like World of Warcraft, where there's a character who is good and their whole job is to try to fix the inevitable decay of the natural order. When I was younger, I used to think that character turning evil, like he tries to fight against evil so long that he eventually becomes evil, I thought that was a bad character archetype. It didn't make any sense to me. And then as I got older and more mature and realized just how monotonous and hopeless that could be, especially when you have a character that has this journey over thousands and thousands of years. The fact that Eithan, Ozriel, whatever you want to call him, has the journey that he has and chooses to go the alternate path where he says, this isn't working, I'm going to shake up the system, I'm going to change the status quo. Eithan's journey, Ozriel's journey to choose to go to Cradle and find another way and choose to, instead of just fighting against everything with the judges, he chooses to try to make a party of people that he can bring up that can be powerful enough to help him change things for the ultimate good, is so flipping cool, which is why everyone says Eithan's one of their favorite characters. The story is about Lindon, but it's also about Eithan, and that's been solidified. Even Will White has said that in his live stream, like Eithan is kind of who the series is about, while Lindon is also who the series is about. The fact that we are seeing some of the fruition of this with the revelation about the Monarchs and the Dreadgods, and now that we see Lindon fully set in his idea that he is going to have to kill the Dreadgods, and he's going to have to either kill the Monarchs or force them to ascend, which could be positive for like the huge I want to say global scale, but it's actually like existential scale, is such a great finale plot for this series. And getting to see him kill a Dreadgod is so cool. And now that we know what the last book is going to be about, which is him killing the Dreadgods while also fighting off the Monarchs, it is such an amazing conclusion to the series that has been built up, and you have connections to these Monarchs. Like, you kind of like the Monarchs, but you find out that they've had this dark secret the whole time, and then you see how quickly they turn against him when they realize what his plan is and how it goes against him. Malice is so evil in Dreadgod, the way she gaslights Mercy, the way that Northstrider, who was a character that I started to really like, immediately turns on him. Like, they are now siding with Rhaegon Shin, who is like the clearly big evil bad of Cradle. Like, the way that this is all coming together is so perfect. And the way that Lindon gets this power, and he now has control over the Labyrinth, he now has control over Subject 1's power, and the fact that Dreadgod is the story of him saying, we need to do this, and the way that he continues Eithan's journey of, I need to raise up this group of super powerful people so we can fix Cradle and then eventually move on to fix the whole world. It's so good, and the execution is amazing. Yrn gets to go to the freaking Red Moon Hall and wipe out a bunch of the blood people that she's struggled against her whole life. Mercy is forced to confront her mother, and even though all of her like lord level revelations have been about how she lives in her mother's shadow and she wants to make her mother happy, the fact that she eventually has to realize that her mother is evil at the end of this, crazy. Charity is such an amazing character, and the way that Charity is sort of confronted with this conflict of, she likes Lindon and she loves Mercy, she loved Fury, but she's going to have to come to a direct confrontation with Malice. All of these dominoes have been set up in such an intricate and nuanced way that I can't. I've said so many wonderful things about Cradle, but the fact that I can just say them now here is so cool. We finally got to see Emrys in action, and she's also working against the other Monarchs. Everything about this book was everything that we wanted it to be, and it's leading into a book called, I think it's Waybound, the end of Lindon's journey. Obviously, the ideal is that Lindon is probably going to ascend, or at least some portion of Lindon's party is going to ascend at the end of the book, whether he sacrifices himself for Cradle or not. We are going to see the conclusion of the Cradle specific storyline. Even if the characters end up ascending into like the Way or the Abaddon, or maybe forming a new Abaddon, whatever you want to call it. I love the scale. I love the progression. I love the setup. I love the series can continue in a way that doesn't feel dumb. We could actually get a conclusion to Cradle. Dreadgod was so amazing in giving so many payoffs, and it sets up so many cool things, but it just makes me so anxious because now everyone is turned against Lindon, and they could use propaganda to turn even the rest of the people that Lindon loves against him. But he's so powerful that he doesn't have to care. He can just be like, listen, I have my mission now. I know my path. They are going to take a time bubble and go into one of the pocket worlds and train, and they're going to come out super powerful. And I think the next book, Will White has said that it could be very long, but the way that the next book is probably just going to be a series of training and then popping out of that bubble and then battle after battle after battle as this crew has to try to defeat all the monarchs and the Dreadgods in one fashion or another. Yes! The fact that we have Dross back to his original self and he is now helping the group. He's now more powerful than ever. Everybody's just more powerful than ever. And the way that they can now it's so crazy how the power has scaled over the course of this series to where literally at the beginning of the series in Unsold, Lindon learns how to use his empty palm and he's just beating up little kids with the empty palm. And then he freaking uses it on a Dreadgod on some insane level where basically demigods are fighting each other against other demigods. It's so wild, guys. The only real negative thing I could probably say about Dreadgod is that Jailong's story arc maybe didn't feel as satisfying as I wish that it did. It's like unfortunate that he died, and the way that it was handled was really tragic, and I like that it was handled tragically. It's a relationship affecting thing with both Lindon's sister and Jailong's sister, especially with that romance arc that was being built there. I wish Jailong had been able to, I guess, get a better redemption arc, or maybe ascend to higher, I didn't mean that like as a pun, but like ascend to greater things that he could accomplish. I was really bummed out that he was a character that had to die in this story, but also this is a story where not a lot of people have had to die, and I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'm not sure if Lindon is going to be dying in Waybound. I'm not sure if any of the other party is going to be dying in Waybound. Like, is Malice going to have to be forced to kill Mercy? I hope Charity is not forced to kill Mercy. Something worth mentioning, and I noted this on my Discord in like the Dreadgod specific section, we still yet have not seen on the current timeline of what's going on in the story. We still haven't seen Ozriel's powers still fully unveiled, and I'm not sure if we will get to in Cradle. I'm not sure if the entire series of Cradle will ever show us the full extent of Ozriel's powers because he's been completely shackled by the Abaddon. We've found out so many cool things that he's done in the past. We know he's super powerful. Even shackled, he does some crazy stuff when he's working with Ozriel. But will Book 12 give us the catharsis of seeing a fully unshackled Ozriel with his Reaper Scythe getting to wreak havoc on the evil? Will we see him get to reunite with Lindon? Like I said, Lindon could die. He could be sacrificed at the end of this. This could literally be the end of Lindon's journey, though, and I was explaining this to my wife in Incoherent Rambling, she doesn't know that much about the series. This isn't a series that appeals to her, but it doesn't stop me from ranting to her about it every time I have these revelations. I'm like, well, you could get around Lindon dying at the end of this book because everybody else, when they ascend, they take a new name. It's almost like they become a different person. They reforge themselves. So this could be the end of Lindon's journey, and he still, becomes one of the like angelic heavenly beings, and it's not Lindon anymore, but it's still Lindon. You know what I'm saying if you read the series. Yaren is not a character that I see dying. The way that she was able to get some of her catharsis and her training and her advancing in this book, and the way that her revelation was that she fights monsters, she has the potential to definitely work under Ozriel as some sort of future Reaper. Like, can you imagine Yaren as a freaking crazy Abaddon type member with the scythe? Like, Yaren would be crazy in that role, but she does need a little bit of maybe a conscience character, maybe like a Lindon or maybe a Ozriel. Like, does Lindon take Ozriel's role? I forgot to mention the fact that we literally end this book on a cliffhanger where Ozriel and Ozriel are left in a scenario where they could both live, but it's very unlikely that both of them will live. We could see Ozriel die, but that would suck. I would be so sad. We could see Suriel die, which would suck because I love Suriel. We could see both of them survive, but honestly, what probably will happen is that one of the crew in Lindon's party, I assume, will take on the role of one or both of them at the end of this series. But my happy heart would love to see instead for them both to live and then Lindon's crew to ascend and then them form their own group to counter the Abaddon. But then, of course, it'll be a 3-part war where the Abaddon and whatever the bad guys are called and then Lindon's party are all like 3 separate entities, which would essentially require another series, right? And Will has definitely left himself the opportunity to say that he might write more in this series or like world or whatever. Obviously, it wouldn't have to do with Cradle specifically. I can see Cradle's storyline ending in this story, though the characters that we've come to love could be extended into more of this stuff. I've also heard that Will White's other books are part of the same shared universe, so maybe I should just read all of those too. Like, how many connections would I find if I read those books? Do they tie into like the Abaddon multiple worlds, multiple universes, I'm pretty sure is how he words it thing? Like, we could be dealing with parallel I don't know what we're dealing with in the whole global series. What I'm trying to say is I freaking love Dreadgod. I am anxiously awaiting Waybound, and I'm very nervous and I'm very scared, but I'm also very excited for it. What did you guys think of Dreadgod, you that are still watching this video here? I need to know other people's thoughts. What was your favorite character arc? What is your favorite character resolution? What do you think about the characters ascending and potentially taking on the mantles? What do you think about them forming their own new version of the Abaddon to try to stop evil in a new way? Do you think Lindon is going to die? What was your favorite moment from Dreadgod specifically? Do you have a favorite moment? I think everyone's going to be a fan of seeing Ozriel's antics with Suriel. That whole section's good. Lindon as a protective brother against Jai Long with his sister. That was pretty good. It's also just cool to see Lindon actually standing up for himself and being fully like, nope, this is the way it's going to be. And there's moments about that, specifically in the story, where he's like, this is the way it's going to be. This is my path. I'm making my choice now. And it even happens at the end of the book where he's like, listen, this is my choice now. I'm not following someone else's path for me. I'm going to make my choice. It could go wrong, but I would be happy knowing that I made my choice, even if it went wrong, better than if I had made a different choice, but I was forced to. You know what I'm trying to say here? Lindon's arc is so good. If you're someone that reads a lot of progression fantasy or lit RPG or whatever, give me another example of characters that have this good of a growth, this good of an arc as like Eithan and Lindon, and I will read those series as soon as I can, please. What I'm instead finding is that I want to binge all of Will White's series because he's becoming one of my favorite authors. If the other series are even close to hooking me, even though they're like smaller, if they even come close to hooking me in any way the same way that this series does, he's easily going to become one of my favorite authors. What are your predictions for Waybound? I need to know. Is it possible that Waybound is going to have even crazier and cooler battles and fight scenes and progressions and power usages and power synergies than we saw here in Dreadgod? Yeah, it's extremely possible. It's extremely likely. I can only be hype. I've only been hype for this series. I read Dreadgod, like, I couldn't have read Dreadgod faster without abandoning all my life's responsibilities. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you love Cradle and if you like the video. If you want to discuss this in a more normal back and forth style way, there are channels for each of the Cradle books where we can have specific discussions if you'd like to. If you'd like to check out other videos on my channel, I would love it if you did so. And if you hit the subscribe button, especially if you hit the bell, you can get notified whenever I post new videos talking about Cradle or any of the other awesome books that I'm reading. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Until next time, goodbye.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.